the truth behind Mr. Pledger. So who is Mr. Pledger? Mr. Pledger is my favorite teacher that literally taught me one of the greatest lessons of life, to not fall under peer pressure and to stick with your goal, and they will fall and you will succeed. And that was the greatest lesson. It was literally Naruto Uzumaki, believe it, done right. And the reason why it was is because he looked at me and I was his favorite student, and that was my favorite teacher. He was super funny, but he was super serious at times. When he tried to give you a life lesson, you absorbed it. And when he made you laugh, oh, did he make you laugh a ton? There was literally so many times when Mr. Pledger literally gave me the rundown of what life is. So here's what happened. I first meet Mr. Pledger when I'm in 7th grade, but I went to elementary school with his son, Joey, and Joey was a rapper, and Joey was literally trying to tell me that you're not too different from anyone else. I like Naruto too. I like Dragon Ball Z too. In fact, he told me the fact that if you like anime is for adults and cartoons are for kids. So literally, Joey was one of the best influences in my life because he literally did music with actually some of the people who I used to do work for. And it was crazy because what happened was he literally gave me so much credit. Even when I had anger problems, he literally tossed me to the side, and Joey's all like, hey, it's all good. You know you gotta get new girlfriends, man. So when I got to see his dad was freaking ferocious, and I did not know his dad was that funny. Because Joey literally he roasted me when I was in the quiet room, and that was back when I was in special ed when I was in elementary. But Mr. Pledger told me the greatest thing about life, about how kids are literally basically adults, because adult is a kid that doesn't have to go under peer pressure, and that literally is what Mr. Pledger told me. That is literally one of the greatest lessons of life. So basically, I tried to be a gangster at a certain point. I tried to be this and that, and Mr. Pledger was like, stop, man, I know you're a good student, stop literally trying to act like you're not a nerd. You're going to win. But at the time, this is the dramatic story of how I almost lost the philosophy of Mr. Pledger because the kids destroyed it. Because he told me to focus on the future, and the kids are talking about now, and now is the only thing that matters. So I'll put it like this. So it starts when I'm in 7th grade, and I am literally the best student in class. I obeyed the most, and literally. So there was this guy named David that Mr. Pledger used to always pick on, and Mr. Pledger was real on David. He would literally roast David, and I would start laughing. He's like, shut up, Paris! And literally, Mr. Pledger, he's like, he's not laughing at you, he's laughing at the joke I made. One thing that was true about Mr. Pledger is he literally knew how to own street guys when they tried to pull that, oh, it's not about what you know, it's who you know, in his classroom. But there was this one guy that caught him off guard one time, and his name was Ryan. There was this one time when Mr. Pledger got out the shower, and this was literally, this is so funny at the time, but you gotta understand that this is a low blow. So Ryan was all like, hey, what's up with that red rag? Because Mr. Pledger just got out the shower. He's like, literally, and I'm like, that is foul. Now that I think about it, that was extremely funny. Like, oh, dude, Ryan's the only guy who caught Mr. Pledger off guard. But in reality, he couldn't escape that situation. And they did the same thing with me throughout my entire years in high school. So it was horrifying. But this is only the beginning of why me and Mr. Pledger had such a fucked relationship. Because what happened was this: I was his favorite when I was in 7th grade, and literally he did everything. He read my comic book, he gave me A++ in the test, he said everything. So literally, he knew me ever since I was a baby. He also helped my dad coach basketball for my brother's team. So me and Mr. Pledger have a long history together. And even Joey played for my brother's team. And it got crazy, but one thing he forgot to tell me, he made me so content when I was in 7th grade. Back when I wasn't capping, I wasn't doing everything. So if we go back to Max the Chance video, Max and everybody and Justin were roasting me in junior high, and literally I got to get all their appraisal from Mr. Pledger when I got into his class. Even though I was so unsocial, as soon as I got into Mr. Pledger's class, it didn't matter. He made me laugh, and he always gave me credit, and he always gave me credit for being a nice person. It was crazy. I wasn't into sports, I wasn't into anything, and literally he kept me content, but here was the problem. Later on down the line, I need a personality. And I was a goody two shoes, and they were all literally capping. And I couldn't cap back. It got to this one point where Ryan starts roasting me, and so I'm all like, man, stop doing this and that. So Ryan's like, man, you don't know how to get a job, man. You know this and that. And so I get out of line with Ryan. I'm like, they won't hire you. And so Mr.Pledger butts in, and he actually agrees with Ryan. He really actually agrees with Ryan. And he's all like, you guys need to stop picking on errors. But then he stopped and said, he's like, an error, stop jumping to conclusions saying that he won't get a job. Because I realized in reality, a lot of guys who just get out of jail get a job faster and get construction jobs and have more resources to get jobs due to being under a program. It's kind of like special ed. It's like, Ryan can get a construction job. No matter how bad you are on this world, you can still land a job. But if you have no social skills, you can land no job. And I learned that in the future. If you have no charisma and you can't pass the interview, it doesn't matter how good you are inside. Ryan had tons of social skills and I had none, even though he was the bad guy and I wasn't. I learned that the hard way down to life. That everybody that literally I made fun of saying, ha, you bad guys, you going to jail, I'm gonna graduate, I'm gonna do this. Now, I'm the one who ended up dropping out of college. I'm the one who literally ended up with a bad future in the beginning, but it all turned out for the better because they were winning because they were still landing jobs, but they were landing jobs at shit like Tesla and other shit where literally felons who have gun charges still get jobs, and I'm all like, okay, well, now that I'm older, those are shitty jobs. But that's what this is all about. This is Mr. Pledger's philosophy and why it works, but it wasn't gonna work at the time being, and why I couldn't work on his word alone. And it sucks, but it's the truth. I had to learn how to be bad in order to defeat evil. I needed to learn how to be bad to fight people who are worse. And so 8th grade came along, and literally I was the perfect student when I was in 7th grade, but 8th grade came along, and my friend Justin starts capping, and I start getting destroyed, and I start going down the wrong path, and I start doing outlandish shit to fit in, and then I had a hormone problem that all kicked in when I was in 8th grade, and so things weren't adding up. I wasn't doing shit in 7th grade. Why am I getting into all this trouble when I was in 8th grade? I got kicked out of drama class in 8th grade for literally being perverted right next to this black girl that sat right next to me. During read, I tried to confess to Mr.Pledger because I got kicked out. He's like, what the fuck happened? And so literally, I tried telling him, I'm like, I was literally so nervous because what happened was, there was this guy, a black guy named Bernard, wearing an afro that did it first before me, and he put his hands on her ass, and he had the fast ass in school, and literally, I was living in the shell of Bernard, and I kept on trying to do what the popular kids were doing. I was copping and feeling, and I got kicked out of drama class. Then my grandma drove me to the side. Well, if other kids do it, they're clever enough not to get caught. And so I literally told Mr.Pledger everything that happened. Like when we were doing read, I would literally rub my elbow against her boob, pretending to read the book and stuff. And so Mr.Pledger's like, so you're basically a little perv that's tried to cop and feel whatever way, shape, or form. He's like, you're a horn dog. You're a horn dog. And he didn't hold back no punches because he was disgusted in me. But deep down inside, I realized a picture is worth 1,000 words. It all happened for me not having a personality. Nerds, everyone, learn how to have a personality. Stop thinking that being good is good enough. You need to be multidimensional. You need to learn how to be everything. You want to be a likable person. You don't want to be a boring person. This has a lot to do with getting in trouble. This has a lot to do with getting people. You can't gain your rights by not being charismatic, by not being anything, by literally just going to your job and that's it. He's like, oh, I have fun at work. He's like, okay, what do you do for fun? And Mr.Pledger knew that the entire time, but he didn't think that it mattered because before all that happened, he tried to tell me, they're gonna sub this shit down your life called game. And so, literally, Mr.Pledger drove me to the side before I even got in trouble in 8th grade. So he tried to tell me that they're gonna shove this thing down your throat called game, and you have your whole life to learn game. And literally, you can take your time when they're getting into criminal activity, they're gonna destroy their future. I learned that in the future. He didn't say that right away, but he gave me a hint when I was younger. He's like, when I was reading a book, there was this word said the twins, and so Mr.Pledger was like, the twins. I'm like, what? He's like, the twins. And he's like, nah, I'm just messing with you. No, but seriously, what that message meant, he's like, man, you can do it. I believe in you. You're such a good student, and you're such a cool guy. You have your whole life to learn how to be funny. You have your whole life to learn game. I've seen the future. You can pull twins. You have green eyes. You can do it. And Mr.Pledger was right, but he wasn't right away. So what happened in 8th grade, after I got kicked out of drama class for sexual harassment, he said, Eris, I'm only being hard on you because I care for you and I know you're a good guy. Stop focusing on girls and start focusing on your music. Start focusing on your comic book. Literally, be a good person and it's gonna work out. But here's the thing, because I'm black, I was targeted. Mr.Pledger is white and it was coming out of a white person's mouth, and he literally did the best he could, but literally he got corrected one time when that shit was working. So what happened was, over and over again, he kept on getting a reminder, it's your fault for letting him be a goody goody two shoes and not telling him you need to have a personality. You're sitting over here with tons of charisma, you're already a grown man. You're telling him to respect the journey when he can die the next day. And literally, so this is a beautiful lesson that you have to learn. So I tried to talk to this guy named Tony that was at scout camp, and so Justin and Andre tried to say, oh, live life by the moment. The reason why we're asses to you and the reason why we get other girls now is because we can die tomorrow. What you teachers said is full of shit. Life doesn't guarantee tomorrow. So I talked to Tony at summer camp, and Tony is like, they may say life isn't guaranteed tomorrow, but chances are you're not gonna die tomorrow, dumbass. What are the chances of that happening? You don't need the rustings in life, is what Tony said. And Tony was a fucking beast. But, you know, when you're going through grade school, when you're going through high school, they proved over and over again that the street life was dominant. And they kept on telling me it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And the street guys kept on messing with me over and over again. So what they did was, they overheard the conversation with Mr.Pledger, so they knew I had a bright future ahead of me, so they tried to take me down. So this guy named Jelani literally told me how to do this move called the bone breaking technique, and that's exclusive for gang members. And what I was doing is, they told me to step my game up. What they would do is, they were dressing colorful baggy jeans, clothes, and all this shit to make me jealous and make me step my game up, and then they would blame me for the end. So what they would do was, they would keep silent and they would literally force me to be jealous at their charisma and saying that this is the way to go without saying anything. A picture's worth 1,000 words, and I learned that the hard way. Literally, white people and everybody were dressing better than me in junior high, and I got jealous, and they were gorillaing. I did all that, so I did monkey see, monkey do, and they played off my muscle memory the entire time. Mr.Pledger was wondering why I was getting into so much trouble, and what they did was, they kept on trying to make me mimic their lifestyle until I finally gave in and joined the gang. That was their entire point, and they didn't want me to be a good person. They wanted me to drop out so I could destroy my future. So it all comes down to freshman year when I become a freshman in high school, and literally, so Mr.Pledger is still there, and it's crazy because he keeps his running gag up, I'm not going to give you validation because I don't want you to be popular in high school. So there was literally this time where Run This Town, Kanye West, Young Jeezy, and Rihanna was playing on the radio in class, and so I turned my work into class, and I start singing Kanye's part, and I start walking back, and I look at Mr.Pledger, and I'm like, what's up, Mr.Pledger, don't you give me credit? And he keeps a straight face, and even though I got better at everything, I memorized Kanye's verse word by word, literally singing it. And so when I got to my desk, he looks at me in a straight face, because I look at him, I'm like, where's my foundation, Mr.Pledger? And he stays silent, and I'm older. You know what that means? That means, I know you think you're that guy. I know you think you're gonna give you credit that you're that guy, but I'm trying to tell you, you're not that guy. But it got even crazier. It got out of hand because there was this time where I faced this b-boy when I was in high school. And so what I did is I challenged a b-boy. I didn't know he was a b-boy, but I started to pop and lock, and I did a move in my shirt. And what Mr.Pledger knows is that's exclusive for Crips. So he drove me to the side. He's like, man, that move was whacking. Literally, he put his hand on his head, and whenever Mr.Pledger does that, that means he's going up too fast. He's becoming a gangster. He's hanging around the wrong clown. If this keeps up, I'm not gonna be able to save him on paper. No, seriously, it was disgusting because it got to the point where Rashad corrected Mr.Pledger. So he looked at Mr.Pledger and he tried to mock what I was doing. So he basically, Rashad told me that I was white and that I shouldn't do what white people do. And Mr.Pledger's trying to say, no, I want him to stay in school. So Rashad and Mr.Pledger had a debate because Rashad was sent there because Rashad had a mohawk and I had a mohawk in junior high. And he was sent there to say, you're a part of the gangster mob. And literally, so I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm a good person. And Rashad's like, no, you're black. He looks at Mr.Pledger, he's like, why are you influencing him thinking that he's gonna get away with white people shit? He's not playing a sport and he's not being a stereotypical black guy. He's gonna fail in society. And Rashad was completely exactly right. When you join a stereotype, you automatically get a ticket invitation to a whole bunch of outlets in society. But here's the catch-22. What I learned when I was older, yeah, you might have more opportunities, but you don't know what to do with those opportunities. if he's not a gangster, he's not gonna be able to go nowhere. He's gonna have no friends, and when he's kicked out of his mama's house because he's gonna want the pussy, he's not gonna have nowhere to go. And he's not gonna have no gangster friends to rely on. He's not gonna have everyone to do this and that, is what Rashad told Mr. Pledger. And Mr. Pledger ate that shit because Rashad was right during high school. Unfortunately, he was right. Because the nicest I was in high school, I never got a reward. I didn't have a single girlfriend in high school. I didn't have this and that. And it backfired on me the day I tried to do wrestling. So I started wrestling. And so literally, I don't get no girlfriends in school. I get rejected by Ivy. It goes crazy. And literally, so I tried to tell Mr. Pledger, like, I'm so mad. So he literally tried to talk to me because he's on the sports and stuff, and he always wore an A's baseball cap. And literally, so I tried telling him, and he's like, why didn't you go to wrestling practice yesterday? I'm all like, I was mad, I stomped on the ground, and I quit, and literally, I walked out, and literally, so he's all like, you know what, you're complaining the fact that you're sore and this and that. I was complaining that I was so sore during practices, and Mr. Pledger literally gave it to me. He's like, you're so sore, you really think that I'm gonna feel sorry for you? You'll only get better if you keep on working out. And so literally, he didn't sugarcoat anything when it came to sports, but guess what happened? So sophomore year came along, and I was still wrestling, by the way. So what happened was this: I came second place in the tournament, and literally the next day after I won, I sold my medal to Mr. Pledger, and Mr. Pledger got sunned, and he literally stayed crying. He's like, awesome, man. He couldn't give me credit. He couldn't give me nothing. So what that meant was I was doing something for the wrong reason. I don't like sports yet. I came in second place in a tournament. That means I was doing something in the shadow of somebody else, and I did it for Mr. Pledger. I literally was so excited. My favorite teacher, I get to show him my medal because I finally got good at sports, and he literally got sunned, and he's like, I shouldn't do this. Like, he literally wanted to quit his job. He wanted to do everything because he realized that he pushed me too far and that my mental pain was outweighing my physical pain. He achieved a goal, but he achieved a goal that didn't mean shit. I still didn't have a girlfriend. I still didn't have this and that. I still wasn't the gangster I wanted to be in high school. But I came second place in the tournament, and literally, I tried to get validation from Mr. Pledger, and he literally cried inside because he took it too far, because that's not outweighing the current situation that I'm in. And I got to prove him wrong at the same time. So that was a double negative for him as a role model and a teacher. His whole speech about being a good person was fading away. I was being a good person. I'm not making out with girls in the hallway. And Diamante is, all these guys are getting the criminal activity, are getting all the girls, getting all their friends, they even have outlets even when they get kicked out of their houses. And I'm sitting over here, I have no friends, I'm bitching and complaining, I have no charisma, I still can't make a joke, by the way, I still can't roast consistently, and everything is going haywire, and I'm wondering, why am I going through so much? And literally, so it got to a point where there was this one time where I got in trouble my junior year in high school from dating this girl that went to another school, and I wasn't supposed to be on her school campus. So what happened was this: I get suspended and I go into detention, and then what happened was this: there was this guy named DeVario who was fat, who was literally from Oakland, and he tried to tell me, you can't be white either. He did the same thing Rashad did. He's like, don't listen to Mr. Pledger. He's not your race. You can't listen to him coming out of a white person's mouth. So here's what happened. So DeVario was very weak, and some people even considered him gay. So what happened was this: I got suspended in class, and that was my first suspension of junior year. So what happened later on is DeVario came up to me during lunchtime, and he tried to tell me, I heard you were talking shit over the Uno game. Now DeVario is big and he's fat, but he's soft, and so what happens is he can't hurt anyone in a fight. So what happened was this: DeVario called me out. I'm like, you have to be joking. So what happened is DeVario held back no punches, and he was faster than me, and I was sitting down, and he started hitting me over and over again. And it was so embarrassing, because what happened was this: his fists were as soft as marshmallows, and he couldn't hurt me, but he kept on hitting me, but I wasn't ready to fight. And so my mind said this: I'm like, I have to take the hit because I already got suspended. I have to let this guy get it out of his system because I'm about to get suspended. And it looked like some Dragon Ball Z shit. He was hitting me over and over again. I couldn't land one hit because I wasn't ready. He already pinned me down, but because he wasn't hurting me is the reason why I let it happen. I let him hit me for all those times. And so I thought being the nice person was gonna get me and good, but guess what happened? Even though I took the hit, even though I was older than him, he was a freshman and I was a junior, I took the hits knowing that I could survive, and I got out of it, and guess what happened? I still got suspended too. I learned in the future that was a black on black crime. They didn't take any of our backs. And literally, I tried being the nice person, I tried being this and that, and I still got the consequence. And so Mr. Pledger's philosophy was bullshit at that point. And so literally, it was so fucking terrible. How can I listen to Mr. Pledger when everything that the popular kids are saying are coming true? And that is how you know you're dealing with a gang. They back it up with their actions in the shittiest way. If DeVario hurt me the first time, I would have retaliated. I would have fucked him up. But because I knew I could take the hits is why I thought being a better person was going to be worth it. So what happened after I got suspended, Mr. Pledger drove me to the side and he tried to tell me, he's like, thank you for taking the hit, Eris. You did the mature thing. You were a junior. He was a freshman. You could have honestly fucked him up. And he's all like, in the beginning, you didn't think he was serious, but now you're ready. So what Mr. Pledger told me is, don't get into a fight with him again. He told me that for a very good reason, because what happened was DeVario still wasn't satisfied. He tried fighting me again, and so on the outside, DeVario was whooping my ass, but because he knew he wasn't hurting me, what happened is he hit me over 100 times in the face, and I didn't share one sign of blood. Because his fist was so fat, and because he didn't work out, all he did was pamper me with pillows all day. And on the outside, I'm getting my ass kicked, but it didn't hurt one bit. And literally, all those hits and not 1 ounce of blood. So Mr. Pledger is like, I know you thought he was joking, but I want you to control your anger, because now you know he's not going to play around. Now you're ready. So Mr. Pledger literally gave me the props. He's like, you would have won if you were ready. I know they manipulated that situation, and he kept on telling me it's going to be all good. That's going to pay off in the future. And it did pay off in the future. But the problem is the right now was devastating. So fucking devastating to a point where they kept on pushing here and there. I'm like, DeVario, you already won. Why you want to fight me again? So me being analytical about that, me not trying to get suspended again, but still getting suspended anyway, was literally wrecking my mind. Like, so when Seymour got into school, it finally hit. So what happened was this. I figured out over time that they were just trying to get me to bang. That had nothing to do with my social skills. I learned how to be funny, but I didn't learn how to be roast backish. You know what that means? That means I only am funny to people who treat people the way they want to be treated. I was hella funny to Craig in freshman year, but when it came to a roast battle, I fell flat. But I could always come out of the situation pretty funny. And that's the thing about being a nice person. So roasting means that you can do a lot under pressure, and that's going to be good, because when you call a girl out on her bullshit and she tries to come back saying I didn't do anything, you're able to combat it no matter how soft of a tone it is. I learned it in the future that that's why they were wrong, but again, they kept on trying to get me to bang over and over again. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to push it, trying to say that we want you to bang me because you look like a gang member. You might as well act like one. So basically, what they were trying to do was they singled me out, and their girls knew that they were wrong, so they kept on pushing it. They were trying to get me in jail, so I would never have the opportunity that Mr. Pledger said I would. And so here's what happens. So Seymour comes along, and Mr. Pledger is telling me, I need you to be more like Seymour, because every girl was going into the special ed class. I'm like, I was in special ed, this wasn't working, so they're literally coming in the special ed class to see Seymour. And literally, he's like, you see how Seymour plays hard to get? This doesn't work in real life, by the way, but what happened was this. They did that. Those girls secretly liked me, and they didn't like Seymour. I learned that over time, that they were doing that to make me jealous. Those girls like anime, by the way. So basically what happened was this. So they used Seymour as a pawn, but when I'm going through high school, I'm thinking that Seymour is so much better than me. He's not doing anything. He's skinny, he's white, and he literally has connections to this and that. And I'm like, oh my God, like, how is this guy who's not funny, who's not doing everything? I worked out, I played sports, I did everything. I'm still not getting a girlfriend. Seymour is literally not even lifting a finger, and he's still pulling all these dimes that I can only dream of. And literally, and that supported Mr. Pledger's statement of being nice, but that wasn't gonna work because they used him as the example for me to bang. They wanted me to be a gangbanger so much in high school, and those girls did that because they knew that they were wrong. So here's what happened. So Mr. Pledger's philosophy went from, you're gonna end up on the streets, but you're not gonna stay on the streets forever, because you're gonna realize that they're dumb, and you're gonna realize that they're not all what you say is. So Mr. Pledger gave up. He gave up on me being a nice person, so he knew I was gonna be a hood nigga because of what was going on. I wasn't listening, I was getting into trouble. So he told me through street code, he didn't tell me out loud, he showed me where his actions, I'm going to be as gay as possible to make you think that I don't have your back. So when it comes to the future, when you go in the streets and when you get out and you realize that it's better to live a normal life. I know you're going to drop out of college. I know you're going to be suicidal. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get plastic surgery. And that was his new goal for me in high school. Was he was trying to teach me, is like, I know that they gaslight you. I know that they made it seem like everything's not going to get better because the right now is so extreme. But I'm here to tell you that they trapped you in the corner, so I'm going to teach you how to fight your way out. He taught me everything. He predicted that I was going to be on the streets before it happened. So when he predicted that I was going to be on the streets, he's like, Eris is a smart kid. He's going to realize that they're all pussies. He's going to realize this and that. And he's going to come back to his senses. He's going to want to go straight back into college. And by that time, he'll already have his shit together. And so there was this one time where I was reading a book with Mr.Pledger, and I got done watching One Piece because I got in trouble with that girl. So literally, my brother told me to marathon One Piece, and so I was watching the Whitebeard episode, and so I talked to Mr.Pledger. We were talking about agriculture, where literally we were reading a book, and it had to do a lot about boats and sailing. I'm like, that reminds me of one of the animes I watched, where this guy named Whitebeard, he said that he doesn't want treasure. What he wants is a family. And literally, and so I'm like, it was kind of odd when I was watching the show. He's like, what? A pirate that doesn't want treasure? And literally, and so I talked to Mr.Pledger. He's like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And so literally, he said it in the gayest way possible. It's like, yeah, that sounds, but in the future, he did that because he wanted me to hurry up the fuck out of there. He wanted me to hurry up and graduate high school so he can finally see, so I can finally see what he's talking about. So he neglected all that shit. So he was right during the future, but the right now was so extreme. Having Seymour outside me, literally, all the gangsters are getting what I want, and I'm sitting over here thinking being a good person is everything when it wasn't. And so here's what happened. It got to a time where it was the end of senior year, and I was crying to Mr.Pledger because I just got told by a gay guy and his 4 girlfriends, and literally, so basically, I get mad because he called me out saying that, I know you like this girl, why don't you just make a move already? I know this and that, and he knows the full situation. He knows I have to fix my reputation before I get this girl, and literally, the gay guys are like, oh, why are you mad? And I'm like, I'm meditating, nigga. He's like, oh, well, go meditate somewhere else. And so literally, I tell Mr.Pledger that story, and so Mr.Pledger gets mad, like, why you keep on trying to seek approval from people that already established that they don't like you? Mr.Pledger can't give it to me over and over again. You've been trying to get approval from these people for years. What makes you think it's going to change within the next 4 months? And so I learned in the future that was bullshit. I wasn't strong enough. My character wasn't strong enough. You see why I did that, fam, eh? Getting a girlfriend within the day. Being able to have sex with a girl within the day. Establishing everything that I couldn't in high school in the day. I had to change. It had nothing to do with their approval. It had something to do with my level of skill of socializing, and that's it. I had to change. I had to get more street smart, or else it wasn't going to happen. I'm sorry, but that's when Mr.Pledger fell flat. But he still had my back, and he's like, it's better to be a good person, and it will always be better to be a good person. Literally, the only time where street smarts matter is when you end up living on the streets. But unfortunately, I was stuck in the section where the street smart people didn't want me to move on, and they wanted me to bang, and they kept on being desperate and trying to manipulate my environment. And so he knew that happened, so he gave me a tool to get out of there. He's like, stick by your belief. Yes, Mr.Pledger was wrong that it didn't matter if it was 4 months left. I can get a girlfriend within a day. Look at what I did at Fanime. It was completely fucking true. I needed to get more street smart no matter which way you break it. But Mr.Pledger was right because in the end, it was better to be a good person. But unfortunately, I was black and I was being targeted. It got to a point where there was this one girl in class that was so fucking ugly that literally I would never want to get at, but I kept on getting rejected by all the fine girls, all the tens at school, and so it got down to a point where I finally hit on the ugly girl that was in the special ed classroom after I got rejected by everyone, and so they were all making fun, like, haha, Aaron, stop, I knew you were not a gangster, stop, Aaron, stop, you keep going and we say stop, and see, I already rejected you, you can't pull anything, but Mr.Pledger put both hands on his face and he's all like, little do these guys know, that's a pimp move. He saved the ugliest girl for last. The only problem is he wasn't having any social validation. What Eris did was he stepped his game up, stepped his wardrobe up every time, but it wasn't strong enough. He may have had more college shirts, he may have had more graphic shirts, but they were not Jordans and they were not shirts from Zoomies. And he knew that, but he kept it inside. And literally, all these kids are making fun of me, but in reality, that is a pimp move. So guess what happened? That same girl that rejected me, that I tried too hard to get, got this guy that was the most popular kid in special ed, who was a senior and he was a freshman, and he got caught up for statutory rape. And guess what happened? Later down the line, I caught Seymour sleeping, and Seymour got caught up with the same girl for sexual harassment. So I won at the end. Because I gave myself the best chance to win. Because I literally proved them wrong in the future, and I proved them all wrong in the future. Mr.Pledger literally turned out to be right. So guess what happened to all those girls at Fanime? They were very nice people. And I was sitting over here trying to get the hoop rats that weren't good for me. And that's what Mr.Pledger was trying to tell me. But when you're young and you're overfilled with hormones, of course you can't believe him. But he was right in the end. But unfortunately, I put him through a whole bunch of pain, but the pain was worth it. And Seymour had a crush on Abby because he was the same age as Abby. So when I got with Abby, it infuriated Seymour to the point where nothing he can do could literally boost his reputation from high school. He was forever in the shell of what he was in high school. And I literally told him flat out on Facebook, I'm sorry, but that girl went out with you to make me jealous. Guess what happened when she rejected you? She went out with a guy who plays sports that doesn't like anime because Seymour loved anime, even had Bluebird on his iPod. And I literally told him all this on Facebook, and that guy had a better face, no homo. And guess why? He could do everything you could, literally just as good looking as you. And guess why? Because that girl stepped it up, and that's what I learned. So basically, it went down like this. So basically, I blocked him on Facebook, and Seymour still had the audacity to say what's up to me on the street. I'm like, didn't I block you on Facebook? And so it happened to the point where I owned the fuck ass Seymour, using Mr.Pledger's philosophy by being a good person, stepping my game up, but staying away from criminal activity. And I learned that. And literally, what was crazy was this. So basically, when I heard that Seymour got cut up, I showed him, I kept on spamming pictures of me and Abby. He's all like, what do you want, man? You want me to block you? I'm like, ha ha ha, blocking me isn't gonna stop you from saying what's up to me in the streets. Well, look at what happened when I blocked you. That most popular guy in class literally got caught up with the girl that rejected me, and that was all a lie. So Mr.Pledger was right the entire time, but unfortunately, I was a victim of circumstances. But I'm sorry, where it came to what really molded me the most, if I did not have the foundation of good, if I didn't stay good the majority of the time, it wouldn't have been worth it. If I kept on letting criminal activity pile up over and over and over again, if I didn't stop when I was ahead, then I would have been dead. And that's why Mr.Pledger's philosophy won.